Welcome to this edition of 1-1 Sports, where today we'll be talking about
NFL Week 1,
the U.S. Open,
and conference realignment.
And it all starts
right now.
Hello, I'm Chase Strawser.
And I'm Harry Haber.
And this is the Quick Hitters. So to kick things off, a topic that lots of people are going to be excited about, especially me, is the Premier Lacrosse League Championship. It's their 5th year. This year, a brand new matchup. The reigning champs Water Dogs are taking on the Archers, both really good offenses and both really good defenses. A couple award winners on both sides, and that'll be going on September 24th. That's Sunday at 3 p.m. It's going to be a really exciting showcase, and I hope everybody will be tuning in. But to move on to the world of football, that's what everybody's talking about right now.
Yep.
And what everybody specifically is talking about is the Aaron Rodgers injury. Harry, what happened?
Wow, I mean, it was just a crazy sequence of events. I mean, 4 snaps into his career with the Jets. There was so much anticipation, so much hype for his debut, and just that Achilles couldn't hold up. And you know, you're starting to look at that contract and see if it's going to be worth it for the Jets. We traded for him. You know, he's 39 years old. He's saying that he wants to come back and play next year, but he is ruled out for the season. A devastating blow for Jets fans and honestly NFL fans. It was really going to be interesting to see if he can live up to the hype. But Zach Wilson stepped in and they got the Week 1 victory. So I don't know. It'll definitely be interesting to see. But we'll see if that pays off for the Jets.
Not even a completion for Rodgers.
Nope.
And I wouldn't say they won because of Zach Wilson,
Yeah.
but yeah, he was the quarterback
Yeah.
and they took the victory. Knowing Rodgers, probably find him in a cave in a couple months. He'll come back out. He'll be good to go at the ripe age of 40. Staying in NFL, everybody's getting paid.
Yep.
Money all over the place. Who's getting contracts?
The bag is being dropped in the NFL right now. Joe Burrow, 5 years, $275 million. Chris Jones ending his contract holdout. He only has 1 year left on his deal, up to $25 million in total incentives, 19.5 base salary. There was a lot of kind of debate about that. He wanted that incentive to be able to make more money. He missed Week 1 because of it, but they finally were able to come to that agreement. And Nick Bosa, 5 years, $170 million. You know, it's smart to play football right now if you're trying to make money. But what was interesting is Joe Burrow in that first week, he had one of the worst games in his career. So, interesting to see how that plays out. I'm sure he'll bounce back. It's Joe Burrow, but we'll see how that goes.
And we talked about it last year where it was Jalen Hurts and all these other quarterbacks. Now that's looking like a discount. You're getting a new highest paid player, it feels like, every week. It also sounds like Chris Jones needs to hire Nick Bosa's agent.
Yeah.
Because the guy only has a 1 year deal.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll get a little more of a payday. And then staying, again, in the world of football, this time the college side of things, we had a huge upset. It's been a season of upsets, but this one might be the biggest.
Huge upset. Texas beating Alabama in Alabama by double digits. It's the first time in over 17 years that Saban has coached the Crimson Tide that they have lost at home by double digits. So kind of crazy there. They also had a 21 home game winning streak heading into Week 2. So Bama dropping all the way to 10. Texas jumps up to 4. It'll be very interesting to see how that goes on. I memean, Alabama, they've kind of been that top dog of college football for a while. They're always, mentioned when you're talking about the college football playoffs. This year is kind of that first year where you're really, I know they didn't make it last year either, but that you're kind of seeing that decline early in the season, and I don't know if they're going to be able to keep it up. It just looks like other teams are starting to outplay them, and that dynasty might be slowly coming to an end, but still a lot of season left to go.
Are we starting to see a shift away from the Alabama superpower?
Yeah.
Hook 'em horns. Well, that's all we have for the Quick Hitters. Next up, again, some more football. We're recapping Week 1 of the NFL. Football fans, rejoice. The NFL is back, and Week 1 has tons to talk about. I'm here with our two experts, Nick Chirichillo and Gabe Leikerman. And to start off, we mentioned in the Quick Hitters, Gabe, that Joe Burrow didn't have the best game of all time. So let's talk about Browns-Bengals. What did we see in that one?
Yeah, for the Browns-Bengals, I'll talk about the Browns' perspective from this one. The Browns, they just dominated the rushing game, over 200 yards on the ground. Nick Chubb with 106 of those yards. The defense basically just shut Joe Burrow down for the Browns. They held him to 45% completion percentage and just 82 yards. Not a performance from the league's highest paid player.
It was a horrible performance from the Bengals, and I will say that most of that performance is probably because Joe Burrow has been injured for 4 weeks and has not practiced with the team leading up to week 1, and you're expecting week 1 to be sloppy, but it was bad. Like, there were throws that Joe Burrow just couldn't make that, like, I think I could have made if I was back there. He just looked awful, and the Browns defense played amazing, and I think that is what will keep them going forward. Their offense did not look great. It was a bad offensive performance from both sides. Even though, like, Deshaun Watson did not have a great game. He still looks rusty, even though he played last year. Like, he is not back to his Texans form.
So do we think this is a sign of things to come for the Browns or the Bengals, respectively?
I don't think so. I think the weather had a lot to do with this game. It was not the best conditions for Joe Burrow and the Bengals to really operate. And the Browns, the only thing that I really think stuck out for them, like Nick said, was their defense. Their new defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, threw tons of different looks in terms of rushing to Joe Burrow, and he just could not read it. They had 17 pressures on Joe Burrow on Sunday, and with a guy who was just hurt with his calf, he was not getting away from them very often.
I also think the Bengals are definitely going to look up later in the season, because last year Joe Burrow threw 4 picks in week 1, and then they came out and lost to Cooper Rush and the Cowboys in week 2, and they looked horrible starting 0-2. And they still made it far in the playoffs. I think the Bengals will go back to the way they usually are. It's just going to take them a couple weeks to get back there.
So the AFC North is even more competitive than we originally thought. The Browns, they showed some good things in that game. But on the flip side, New York fans had a terrible weekend of football for those fans. They still got the win in the case of the Jets. What did we see from that one, despite the Aaron Rodgers injury?
Yeah, well, we all know about the travesty that happened on this first drive as a New York Jet. Aaron Rodgers tearing his Achilles out for the year. And the Jets, they just kept playing. Zach Wilson stepped up, not really winning the game because of him, but he got the job done, and one person who did not look good was Josh Allen.
Josh Allen, I don't know what has happened to him. His first couple years in the league, he looked really bad, and then he picked it up, and everyone's like, oh my God, MVP contender, and now he just chucks the ball around, and a lot of the time it's not to his own team. His favorite 2 targets, Stephon Diggs playing like always, and Jordan Whitehead.
Yeah, and Stephon Diggs was dominating Sauce Gardner on that one, over 100 yards and a touchdown in Monday night's win.
Jets were still very competitive despite the loss on offense. Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook looked like a great duo, and then on the other side, for the New York Giants, just complete demolition by the Cowboys. What did we see from them?
From the Giants, we saw exactly how much Saquon and that defense carried them last year. Daniel Jones got paid. He does not deserve that money because he cannot win you games. And they just got dominated. Like, the Cowboys defense put on a clinic. I don't know where the Giants go from here because the Cowboys showed how to stop that offense. If you can relatively shut down Saquon and rush Daniel Jones, you can win easily against New York.
Yeah, you don't want to overreact to week 1, but the Cowboys defense, you gotta give them props. They had 2 touchdowns, 1 fumble, 2 interceptions, and 7 sacks on Daniel Jones. 7. And the one thing for the Cowboys, Tony Pollard on offense, he looked pretty good. 14 carries, 70 yards. And a pair of touchdowns, getting into the end zone twice for Dallas.
As an owner of the Cowboys defense in fantasy, I loved every moment of it. I have a lot of friends who are Giants fans, and they were just very sad, but I was loving every moment of it. And finally, probably the best game of the weekend, already a contender for game of the year, we had Dolphins-Chargers. The supporters, the crowd behind Tua, that's saying maybe he's better than Herbert, and after this week, maybe even better than Burrow. They have a little bit of backing after this week. Yeah, great performance. What did we see from that game?
I think Tua looked really good, but I think that's a week 1 overreaction. I would not put him ahead of Herbert and Burrow. The Dolphins' offense looked amazing, but he also has 2 top 10 receivers, and I don't want to say his receivers do everything, but like that gives him a step in how he's able to throw for 400 and something yards and 3 TDs.
I think if we had a contestant for MVP that was a wide receiver, you got Justin Jefferson, but Tyreek Hill may just have one of the best seasons. He was on that pace last season.
I think Tyreek Hill, I'm going to say it right now, I think Tyreek Hill is the best receiver in the league. I think he is the best receiver in the league. He's the most dangerous receiver. You have to always be aware of him because of that speed. That speed is, you can't teach it. Speed kills. And Brandon Staley, something he just was not doing, Tyreek Hill would beat his corner over the top and there was no help over the top. So Tua would just bomb it over every time. Tyreek Hill, easy touchdown.
Word is that J.C. Jackson is wanted for robbery from the Chargers organization for his performance against Tyreek Hill. But really, this Chargers team, it always comes in with a lot of high hopes, and that Dolphins team looks really good on both sides of the ball. Well, that's all we have for the NFL Week 1. We'll recap the NFL throughout this semester and beyond, but I want to say thank you to Nick and Gabe for their expertise today. Next up, we're talking about the U.S. Open.
Welcome back to 101 Sports. Today I'm here with Miles, and we're going to be talking about the world of tennis. A lot of things going on. Let's go ahead with men's singles. Novak Djokovic beating Daniil Medvedev. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it was a great end to the U.S. Open. Novak Djokovic continued his legacy of legendary tennis by continuing his dominance, winning his 24th Grand Slam, tying Margaret Court for the most Grand Slams won in either men's or women's tennis. And it's crazy how he's doing it at this age. He's 36. He became the oldest U.S. Open men's single champion in open era history. He's 12-3 in Grand Slams since turning 30. It's crazy how dominant he is at this age.
It really is. Ranked number 1 in singles by the Association of Tennis Professionals for a record total of 390 weeks. I mean, that's pretty impressive, especially at his age. Something cool, definitely to keep a look at. For women's singles, Coco Gauff, sensation. I feel like everyone knows Coco Gauff. Super cool, only 19 years old. First U.S. Open championship for her. Really, it was just amazing stuff there.
Yeah, she's only 19, and she's now number 3 in the world at such a young age. And she's the first American teenager to the U.S. Open singles final since Serena Williams in 2001. And she's 18-1 since her last 19 matches, so she's been on an absolute tear as of late. It'll be interesting to see how she adjusts to the added pressure of being now a Grand Slam champion. Some players win their Grand Slam and then just fall off a cliff, so it'll be interesting to see how she adjusts to that added pressure.
Yeah, and you also do have to take into account that she is only 19, so it is pretty impressive. As a 19-year-old, you're going up against competition who's much older than you, and it's kind of crazy how she's been able to handle that and compete at such a high level. And I can see her playing for a lot longer. Let's go ahead and talk about the Americans in the U.S. Open. 5 reached the quarterfinals this year, so something really cool. No American man has won since 2003. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no American man has really been dominant at all in American tennis since Andy Roddick in the early 2000s. There's been kind of a drought in American dominance on the men's side. It's really been the women who have been doing well. But Frances Tiafoe, Ben Shelton, Taylor Fritz, and Tommy Paul all did very well in the U.S. Open this year. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a resurgence of men's tennis. See if they can finally overtake the women for the first time in a while. And speaking of American tennis, John Isner, his illustrious 17-year career came to an end at this U.S. Open after he lost to fellow American Michael Mmoh. So it's kind of an end of an era with that. And it remains to be seen if these other players like Fritz and Shelton and Paul kind of take up his legacy of American tennis.
Yeah, definitely really interesting to see. Let's just touch on the doubles a little bit, men's women's doubles. Aaron Rotliff, very interesting there. They beat the 2020 champs. Tell me a little bit about that. It's their 4th tournament together, and first Grand Slam doubles title for that pair.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how it's only their fourth tournament together. They've gained success so quickly. They only started teaming up with each other in Montreal earlier this summer, and they're already winning a Grand Slam. So it's kind of crazy how quick they are doing so well. And also, it's kind of a historic win. Roelof is the first player from New Zealand in the Open era to reach the semifinals of a women's double draw at the U.S. Open, and Dabrowski is the first Canadian to win the Grand Slam in women's doubles. So it's a bit of historic win for the both of them.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, Miles, great to talk to you about tennis, about the U.S. Open. We're going to throw it to conference realignment in college football.
Conference realignment. If you're a fan of college sports, you probably heard of it. Well, today we got our two experts, Jack Gill and Ethan Potash, to talk it over.
Yes, thank you, Chase. And now, Jack, let's get right into it. So here we have a timeline of the last couple of years of conference realignment. This isn't even all of them. This is just the big ones. The Conference USA has had a lot of realignment. So has the Sun Belt. But to start off, these are also the dates that it was announced these schools would leave the conference, not the dates that they officially will leave the conference. As we know, Texas and Oklahoma, they're going to leave after this year. That also applies to some of these other schools. So we start. Texas, Oklahoma, 2021, they announced they're going to leave the Big 12 for the SEC. And then in response to that, we have Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, and BYU being admitted to replace them. Fast forward to June of last year, USC and UCLA rocked the college football world and the college athletics world in general. Two of the oldest members of the Pac-12 back from the 1920s, they announced they're going to leave and they're going to go join the Big 10. Fast forward more to August, not that long ago, we have Arizona, Arizona State, Washington, Oregon, Utah, and Colorado all announcing they're going to leave the Pac-12 for either the Big 10 or the Big 12. And then not that long ago, just 2 weeks ago, Cal, Stanford, and SMU are going to be admitted to the ACC, it was announced.
And Ethan, this all comes down to what? Money. TV deals right here, Big 10, 7 years, $7 billion. We got the SEC with 10 years and $3 billion. The ACC with 20 years and $1.9 billion. The Big 12, 6, $2.3. And Pac-12, 12 years, $3 billion. Those are the current TV deals that are in effect right now. The big question is, though, 7 years, $7 billion, it's such a big difference from the other ones. It's something to talk about, something to think about.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that the Pac-12 wasn't actually the lowest TV deal on there, but they do have the lowest payout per school. You can see only $37 million here. The Big 12, who has or the ACC rather, that has a lower TV deal than they do, they're 0.9 higher, 900,000 higher, sorry.
As we can take a look on the screen right here, this is a map of the former college football realignment here. So this is the previous conferences for the Pac-12 right here. We've got the Big 12, the SEC in yellow, the ACC in blue, and the Big 10 in light blue. And now as we look at the current college football realignment, which will be in effect 2024, a lot different. Doesn't really make much sense. The two lone Pac-12 teams up here at the top. The Big 10 stretches across the United States along with the Big 12 and the ACC as well.
Yeah, so as we see, these are going to create some long flights within conferences. This one's the longest, San Francisco to Boston, involving Stanford, Cal, and BC. 6 hours, 25 minutes, and they're jumping across 3 time zones. Next up, another one involving Stanford and Cal, this time with Miami. San Francisco to Miami, 5 hours and 40 minutes, another 3 time zone jump. Heading over to the new Big 10, Portland to Newark with Oregon and Rutgers, 5 hours 15, once again 3 time zones. And then there, Pacific Northwest brother Washington to Rutgers, just a tad bit shorter at 5 hours 5 minutes, still 3 time zones. These are all within the conference and we're not even done yet. Let's head over to stay in the Big 10 for a second. LA to Newark, USC, UCLA, and Rutgers, 5 hours 5 minutes as well, another 3 time zone jump. Now we'll head over to the Big 12. We have Salt Lake City to Orlando, which is going to involve Utah, BYU, and UCF. 4 hours and 15 minutes and 2 time zones. And we didn't even mention some of the other ones. We're going to have Oregon and Washington having to go to Maryland and Penn State. Cal and Stanford to literally every other school in the ACC. I mean, the closest flight for Cal and Stanford is going to be to SMU and Dallas, and that's 3.5 hours still.
Now the question is, Ethan, well, this doesn't really matter because football flies commercial or flies privately, but the other sports are all flying commercially. This is a big cost for the other teams, other programs that might be underfunded at other schools.
Yeah, the Missouri head football coach really said it best. To paraphrase, he basically said football will be fine. What about the softball teams? What about the swim teams? You know, they're going to be getting back home 3, 4 in the morning. They're going to have class the next day. They have practice all day most days. Being a Division I athlete, especially at one of these big Power 5 schools, is a full-time job, really. And this is going to completely alter. This is going to affect more than just football. This is going to affect everyone else.
A professor at the Bowling Green University of Sport Management said, from Amanda Polykoba, if we're not investing in helping them be academically successful so they can be prepared for life after sport, these universities are then failing their athletes, and they need to remember to keep the athletes at the center of the discussion, not the money.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. It's a great conversation. It's a conversation that's going to continue to be had in classrooms and conference rooms around the country. Well, that's all for conference realignment. We'll be right back and wrap up this episode of 1-1 Sports. Thank you for watching this edition of 1-1 Sports.
Be sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Instagram at 1-on-1 Sports for any and all updates.
And a quick shout out and happy birthday to our Hall of Fame host, Gray Oss. And until next time,
Whose side are you on?
All right, I gotta get
See if
a
I
good
can hit
toss. Oh, that.
Oh, wow, we overshot
That's
that.
a beauty. Might be the best one ever.
I overshot that, by the way.